Hi, it's John. Welcome to my channel EV Intuition, where I'm helping you understand about electric vehicles. Today's video, I'm going to talk about the two electric vehicles that I have owned, the Ford Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y. I've owned them each for over a year and have real-world experience in driving, using them, charging them, etc. And what I'm going to do is compare them and contrast them and tell you what I liked about each of the two, and then give you the overall winner in my mind as to what is a better vehicle for me. So let's get started. Before I begin, I want to ask you that if you like the content of my videos, please subscribe, give me a like. Also, send me any comments you have. Thanks for watching. Today I'm talking about the comparison of the two electric vehicles that I've had a lot of experience with, the Ford Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y. Now, I bought the Ford Mach-E in 2021, and it was my first electric vehicle experience. And I loved the experience, had it for 2 years, but then decided, based on price, to buy the Tesla Model Y. So let's talk about first comparing the two purchasing experiences and the purchase cost. And the main thing you'll find out is that both these vehicles are very similar in size and function. And when I look at the price, they both were about $50,000 vehicles. The main difference between the two vehicles is the credits and rebates that I got from federal and state. In 2021, for the Ford Mach-E, I was able to get $2,000 back from state and $7,500 from the federal government, which gave me a little advantage over the cost. The rebate I got from the Tesla, which was $500 state and $7,500. Now keep in mind that in 2021, I could not get any rebate for the Tesla. And that's one of the reasons I did not buy a Tesla in 2021. The federal rebates for Tesla were not available. So things continue to change in that area even today, so you always got to look at that. But for the most part, these vehicles cost the same amount of money, with maybe the Tesla costing $1,000 or $2,000 more. So from a price perspective, even though these cars are very similar, I paid a little more for the Tesla Model Y, counting rebates. The other thing I wanted to share with you is also my experience with these two vehicles, the purchase experience. The Ford was somewhat traditional. I ordered the vehicle online, but I picked it up at a local dealership, which was just a couple miles from my house. And I found that experience pretty good. The online ordering went very smooth. I ordered what I want, knew exactly what I had to pay. And then I went to the dealership a couple miles away to pick up it, and they trained me on the vehicle, etc. So it was a very good experience from that perspective. Now, the Tesla has also a different buying experience because it tries to get away from the dealership experience, which I understand from the past, and even myself included, dealing with a dealership is not always a good experience. And I've had those experiences myself, and Tesla's trying to get away from that. And they run into some of the dealership laws that each of the states have, including New York State. So it's a little more difficult for Tesla to set up shop to pick up your car. So the ordering was done online, and I knew exactly the price that I was going to have to pay, just like the Ford. But I had to go a couple hundred miles away from my house to pick it up, because in New York State there's only a couple dealerships where, or I should say, couple locations where you can pick up a Tesla vehicle. So from that perspective, the overall purchase experience from the Tesla versus the Ford was not as good with the Tesla, just due to that having to travel several hundred miles away from my home to pick that vehicle up. And I think the experience at the Tesla, I found the Tesla location very busy. Though they would take a little time to explain it, it seemed a little more rushed, and you didn't get that personal experience. So from an overall perspective, I think Ford did a better job in the overall purchase experience. And as you can see, comparing these two very similar vehicles, one slightly as far as price goes. Now let's look at some of the key specs of these vehicles. As I mentioned, each of these vehicles is pretty similar. And this is one of my main reasons for moving to the Tesla, was that it had some specs that were better. One of the big ones was the range of the vehicle. Now the Ford Mach-E that I bought was a premium standard range all-wheel drive. And the reason why I stuck with the standard range at that point in my purchase decision was price. I think I had to pay an extra $7,000 if I wanted to go to the extended battery. And at the time, I didn't feel like spending that much money on a vehicle. So anyway, the nice thing is in 2023, the Tesla prices came down significantly from 2021, and plus the ability to get a rebate. I got a vehicle that EPA listed as a range of 330 miles. Now, keep in mind that the range of a vehicle is both city and highway combined, and there is a lot of looseness with the EPA test that doesn't match your actual experience. And my actual experience was with the Ford Mach-E on the highway, where I think range is most important. I got maybe about 200 miles in the best conditions, in the warmer weather. And with the Tesla Model Y, I get about 270 or a little more than that. So clearly, the Tesla Model Y gets a lot more range than the Ford Mach-E and is the winner in that area. Efficiency is another area to look at between the two. The measure of efficiency that the EPA gives is something called MPGE, and you could see that the Tesla has an MPGE of 122 versus the Ford of 93, which means it makes it about a third more efficient vehicle, which means I'm spending even less on electricity using the Tesla compared to the Ford. So that's a winner in that category. Looking at another aspect of the vehicle is cargo space. It shows that the Tesla Model Y actually has a fair amount of more space than the Ford Mach-E. So is kind of the winner there. And the last area that I point out that's key from a spec point of view in my mind is the warranty. And Tesla has a slightly better warranty, by its main warranty being a 4-year $50,000 versus the Ford being a 3-year $36,000. And the battery also goes 8 years, $120,000 versus Ford's 8-year $100,000. So clearly in the spec range, and this is one of the reasons why I went to the Model Y when the price of the Model Y came down and rebates were available, is that I got a lot more car for the money. Now, the next area to look at as far as comparing to these vehicles is charging. I think there's 4 categories of charging. I had a video on this that you probably want to make sure that you're aware of. And one is the AC charge maximum rate, the DC fast charging maximum rate, the 10 to 80% time, and the software. And you can compare these things, and looking at the charts, you can see from the charging specs that the Tesla is a faster charging car than the Ford. Both in the AC, which I call the slow chargers, your home chargers, it can take more power and hence charge quicker versus the Ford. And then on a DC charging, when you're on road trips, you're going to spend less time at your charger because the Tesla charges up to 250 kilowatts versus the Ford, which really was, I've never seen 159 on my Ford. It was typically 110 and lower. So that's what the Ford delivered. And then the key thing with that max charge rate, the 10 to 80% time when doing DC fast charging, you can see that there was a significant difference, the Tesla being faster. And the last area is software. Clearly, in my mind, the state-of-the-art or leading in charging software is the Tesla, because you can just type your destination. Tesla puts in the superchargers where you're going to have to stop to get charges, and it'll take you there, preconditions your battery ahead of time, and also make sure you're going to a charging location where there's chargers available. So all those things make this a much better experience, and hence in this category of charging, I think Tesla clearly comes out a winner. Now, the next category in comparing these vehicles is the exterior of the vehicle. When I look at the exterior, I say, well, let's first start out with the look. Now, look is a subjective area, and everybody may have a different opinion. I think both these vehicles are sporty-looking vehicles, and they're both pretty sharp-looking. But I give the edge to the the Ford Mach-E. Maybe it's the tradition of the Ford Mach-E history or whatever, but I think the lines and the curvature of the Ford Mach-E looks better than the Tesla. So that's a subjective plus that I gave to Ford as a winner there. The next is in build quality. If you look at the panel gaps, and Tesla has had some issues with this in the past, and I clearly think they still have a little when I look at the gaps between my Ford and my Tesla. Some of the Tesla ones are not as even as the Ford. So from a build quality, the exterior of the vehicle, I gave that to Ford as a better vehicle. Now, the next category that I think is important is getting into the car. And one of the things is the locking mechanism. Both vehicles had phone as a key, as the element, and I loved that capability. But I just think that Tesla did a better job with phone as a key. Now, my wife has an iPhone and I have an Android phone. And when we started with the Ford, we had some issues with those phones opening up the vehicle or unlocking the vehicle. Now, it improved over the 2 years that I've owned the vehicle, but it still wasn't as good as from day one. The Tesla worked well with their phone as a key. Every time I walk up to that car and every time my wife walks up to the car with her phone, it opens up. There's not any issues with that. And the last area that I talk about is the door opening mechanism. Ford had a unique area where it uses a push button, which I think is pretty cool. So its doors are pretty flat and all it has is a button. You touch the button and the door pops open and then you open the door. Tesla has their handles where you got to push on one side and then pull. I don't find that always convenient depending on which hand you're going to use to open the door. It kind of forces you to use a particular hand depending which side you got to push the handle in on. So I'll give Ford the winner on that aspect of the exterior of the vehicle. Now let's look more into the interior of the vehicle where I talk about a few more things. First of all, I say center screen and people say, well, the Tesla doesn't have a center screen. And yeah, I give Ford Mach-E a plus because I do like having that center screen that gave me some basic things about the car, such as my speed and how much state of charge I got left was right center in front of me. I don't have to look to the right in order to see the main infotainment screen that both vehicles have. So I give Ford a plus for having a center screen. The other thing from an infotainment point of view, I just think I like the Tesla better. Yes, the Ford had Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which somewhat is clunky, but I get the purpose of it. It gives you some flexibility in using your phone. But the Tesla is just so well done. Their capabilities, their apps that they have in it, and their maps, I just think come out to me a better winner as far as an infotainment system. From a comfort point of view, I find both vehicles about the same. They're both fairly comfortable. I like the seats of both of them. I didn't really have any issue with either of them. The audio systems to me were very, very compatible also. And then the ride too was, these are not the most comfortable rides. They tend to be stiff, but the Ford Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y, in my sense, was a little stiff. I've driven in other cars that are a little stiffer and others that are more comfortable, but I think these vehicles are both comparable in the ride feel. And then the same thing with the noise. They both kind of suppress a fair amount of noise, but they're not the quietest vehicles in keeping out noise from outside the car. The other area that I looked at and compared was the heating and AC, and I gotta give the Tesla a little edge here because the Tesla had heated back seats. Now they both have heated front seats, and I really enjoyed that. Here being in New York State, in the wintertime, heated seats are a wonderful thing. They kind of heat up quickly and you feel comfortable starting right out. But the nice thing is the Tesla also has heated seats in the back too, which to me is a plus. And the AC for both systems work very well. The other thing I looked at here and compared was wipers. Now they both have this auto feature of the wipers, so they sense how much rain is coming down and choose what speed. And I felt Ford did a better job at this. Sometimes the Tesla went too fast for me. It was sprinkling out and the wipers are going a little crazy. So I felt Ford did a better job in their auto sensing feature on their wipers. And then Tesla also, once in a while, you're driving along when it's dry and suddenly the wipers will swipe. It's gotten better over the year, but still they can do a better job in preventing that from happening. Another area that I compared these two vehicles at is the mirror/rear vision. And the reason I bring this up, I find that the Tesla has such a small window in the back that you can see out of. I found not as good of an experience. So I like the Ford having a little better back window to look through. Though I know they both use a screen and you can just look at the screen. I'm just saying from a mirror point of view, I thought that was a little better. So I gave that a plus to the Ford. Interior quality of the vehicle, I found them very similar. They're both not plush. Tesla's pretty simple, but they're all well constructed. And so I gave them a draw there. And the final area that I looked at from an interior perspective was the camera parking assistance. And this is using the vehicle cameras and the screen to help you and assist you in parking. And I'll give the plus to Ford there. I really like their 360 view of cameras, and it gives you kind of a realistic view around your vehicle, whereas the Tesla gives you this 3D model of things around you, which is good, but not as good as the Ford Mach-E in their 360 view. So that's the interior of the vehicle, and you can see that in this sense, I think I give a little of a plus to the Ford in overall interior. And the last area that I evaluate these from a comparison point of view is what I call extras, because they're not necessarily features you find on all vehicles. And the plus on these goes to the Tesla, and it's two areas. One, I do really like the Sentry mode and the camera recording capabilities of the Tesla. And if you're not familiar with the Tesla, the Sentry mode is a mode where the cameras are active while your vehicle is parked. So if you park your vehicle in a parking lot or a parking garage, wherever, somewhere outside your home, the cameras can be enabled to keep monitoring what's happening around your vehicle. And if, let's say, for example, somebody hits your car or damages your car, that's going to be captured on video and stored in the vehicle for you to have as evidence of what happened and who did it or what did it. And I find that as a great security mechanism. And the other thing that Tesla does is also while you're driving, the cameras are on and recording. And if there is a particular incident like an accident with your vehicle or something that happened around you at the time, you could save that video as evidence in any legal matter or just for showing somebody what particular thing happened. So I find that as a really neat and handy capability that the Ford did not have. And the last area that I think Tesla did very good from an extra point of view is, I say, over-the-air updates. Tesla, at least once a month, probably a little more, gives updates to the vehicle. And a lot of times these updates are minor fixes, but they're also enhancements to the vehicle. So they give you more capabilities over time, or they're constantly improving their UI and their infotainment system. And so I find this a neat feature in that you're getting increasing value over time through these software updates. And the fixes help you save you from going in for any particular fix. Now I got over-the-air updates with the Ford Mach-E, but I also had to, on occasion, take it in a couple times for some updates that didn't come over the air. And I haven't had to do that with the Tesla Model Y. So in summary, you could see that when looking at the different categories of comparing these vehicles, I saw some areas where the Ford Mach-E was better than the Tesla. And then there's areas where I felt the Tesla was certainly better than the Ford Mach-E. So, but overall, if you look at all those categories in the key areas, the overall winner in my mind is clearly the Tesla Model Y. For about the same amount of money, I got a lot more car. I got a lot more range. I got faster charging. I got more features, such as the camera recording in Sentry mode. And I've got a lot of updates coming at me. So I think right now for the price, the Tesla Model Y is the better vehicle for me. Now, keep in mind that the EV industry is a dynamic one. It's constantly changing. And even the cost. Remember, I talked about if I bought that Tesla Model Y in 2021, it would have cost me about $18,000 more, about $10,000 in price, and then $8,000 in rebates that I wouldn't have gotten that I got in 2023. So those are all factors that you got to keep into play. That Model Y became affordable to me and became a better value for me only in 2023, which is when I bought it. And so those are the things you've got to look at. This electric vehicle industry is constantly changing, improving, costs are dropping, features are improving, charging speed, etc., range. So just keep that in mind, that this was a snapshot in time for me, and this is where it came out for me. So I hope you found this valuable. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time. Take care.